In alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome everyone to our series entitled The Lawful and the Unlawful. And this is the class whereas we embark upon the things that are lawful in Islam and the things that are unlawful. And so far we've covered everything from food to medicine to clothing to makeup, to jewelry, to getting your hair done, to the house, having certain decorations in your house. Even to now, what we're embarking upon is marriage and family life, what's lawful and unlawful in regards to the relationships between women and men. And when we talk about free mixing, a lot of Muslims don't understand what free mixing entails. Is it unlawful in Islam for a woman to go someplace where there are men congregating for example, does Islam forbid a woman, for example, from going to the grocery store to buy her food because there may be men there? Does Islam forbid a woman from going anywhere to the marketplace because there are men there? Can anyone explain what is meant by free mixing? What is the Islamic concept of free mixing? Does that mean that a woman and a man cannot go to places where the opposite sex are? Can anyone explain that? Come on, people, wake up. Okay, we got people here in Zoom. Let's start at the bottom. Shamza. What does it mean when we talk about free mixing? Sabrine, what does it mean when we speak about free mixing? Rockmo, what does it mean? Umi Beryl, what does it mean? Marianne, what does it mean? Go ahead, Fatima. Whoever's got the mic. I'm not going to sit here and have to call y'all out like this. I mean, if you know, this is basics, the basics of Islam. You guys should know. Go ahead.
Free mixing? Free mixing is when men and women are mixing together. Okay. You know, it can be one man and one woman. Okay. Or it could be a group.
Okay, listen to the question. I want everybody to stop cooking, stop watching television, whatever y'all doing, and listen to the question. What is meant by free mixing? Does that mean that a woman cannot go to a place where there are people of the opposite sex? Does that mean that a man cannot go to a place where there are people of the opposite sex? Can anybody define to me what free mixing is considered in Islam from the Islamic point of view? When we talk about free mixing, what are we speaking about? Are we saying that I can't go out the house because there's men standing outside? Can somebody explain what is meant by free mixing? This is the question. Now, let's see if we can get some answers.
I would say free mixing, going to nightclubs or parties or...
No, that's not the meaning. Okay. Thank you for trying those, Sabrina. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? What is the Islamic meaning of free mixing? Does it mean that it's haram for me to go to the grocery store because there are men there? Does that mean that it's haram for a man to go and to teach a class that has women? Can somebody give us the Islamic definition of what free mixing is? Okay, Sister Queen, she said that free mixing is congregating, talking to men in open conversations. That's not free mixing either. That's not, and this is the thing. A lot of Muslims today don't understand the basics. What is free mixing? Islam does forbid us from free mixing, but what is that? What is the law forbidding us from? Is he saying that I can't go out in the open and talk to men? Is he saying that I can't go out to a place where there's women and men together? Come on, people, think. Put your thinking caps on. And
I know.
Let's hear it.
It's when like a woman and a man are together, but they're not mahram and they're alone.
There. Why is it that it takes the children? The children know the answers. These are my kids from the Sunnahfollower Kids program. And see how the kids know the answer? She's only 10 years old. My God, and you adults don't know what free mixing is. That's probably why so many of you do it. In Islam, free mixing is when you have a woman and a man alone together that are not mahrams, meaning that they are not closely related. He is not your brother. He is not your father. He is not your uncle. He's not your grandfather. He's not your nephew. He's not your father-in-law. He's a man that you're meeting with alone, with no one else around. That's free mixing. And I want every Muslim on this planet listening to me to write that down. Because if we understand the meaning of what Allah says, then we wouldn't be terrorists and try to impose things into the religion that's not true. Nowhere does Allah say a woman can't go grocery shopping or a man can't go to a place where women are. Look at the companions. The women used to go to the marketplace. They used to congregate at the mosque. Subhanallah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave all his sermons at the mosque. The women were right there with the men. Even on the battlefield, the women and men were together. Okay? But it means that I cannot be alone with one man who is not a mahram to me. Do you guys understand that? If I'm around other men, this is fine. If it were me, Dr. Dramali and Dr. Assam, that's permissible. Say, for example, Dr. Dramali wanted to meet with me to discuss this website, and he brings Dr. Assam with them. I can do that. We can go out to dinner together. Me, Dr. Dramali, and Dr. Assam. We can go to dinner together and sit there and discuss this website. As long as I'm dressed properly and as long as they're dressed properly. Okay? But can Dr. Dramali go alone with me? Can me and him meet up? No. This is free mixing. Do y'all understand? I cannot mix freely with a man who is not a mahram to me and be alone with him. And I want you brothers and sisters to understand that. If it's two or more, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not visit upon a woman unless you have one or more brothers with you. Because whenever a man and a woman are alone together, Shaitan is the third person. So free mixing means me and another man, a man are going to mix together freely without anyone to accompany us. If I'm doing it in the public, it's me, him, and a bunch of other people, that's fine. Do you guys get it? The children understand. The adults have a problem with it. Now, what about this? Can I hold conversations with a man in private? Is that permissible? Is it permissible for a woman and a man to speak alone in private together?
No, it's not permissible. There's a hadith, when there's two, the third person is shaitan. So no.
Exactly. Even in the cases like that. And often, guys, you see here on the website, like say, for example, like yesterday, you guys notice whenever Dr. Dramali calls me to discuss the website, what do I do? What do I do whenever I'm talking to Dr. Dramali or I'm talking to Dr. Assam or I'm talking to Sheikh Morsi? What do I do, guys?
Put the call on speaker.
That's right. I put it on speaker. Okay, whenever I'm speaking to one of the other brothers here at this website, I got us on speaker. So that way that you guys are the witness. that keeps away the shayateen. Okay? Whenever a man and a woman is alone together, we get loose with our conversation and we fall into sin. We end up having relationships that we shouldn't have. And those relationships can turn haram and toxic, and they can destroy you. Allah, made the rules for our betterment. He made the rules for our betterment. And that's why we don't have boyfriends and girlfriends in Islam. This is one of the questions that one of the young kids asked me. This is why there's no dating. If a person wants to get married, we get married as soon as possible. There's no engagement for us. If you want to marry me, let's get married. So that way, if we're going to talk privately, we don't transgress the limits with Allah. If you are sincere about wanting to marry a woman, you can even get married on the telephone. The Prophet Muhammad married Habiba in a letter. Subhanallah. We don't court. We don't date. We don't play with fire. We don't play around with that because that's dangerous. So, if you are a woman, an older woman, for example, and there's a brother that wants to marry you, you get married. Seriously, get it done quick, because otherwise you're going to end up doing some hanky-panky, stanky stuff, and somebody's going to get hurt. Okay, when we do stuff wrong, when you start a relationship off bad, it's not going to be successful, and somebody's going to end up hurt. Hanky-panky leads to stanky. I tell you guys that hanky-panky leads to stanky. If a person's sincere, they're going to marry you. They're not going to sit there and tell you we got to get to know each other, because Islam teaches us. Islam teaches us you're never going to know the person until you marry him anyway. I don't care if me and you talked for 10 years. You're never going to know me on an intimate level unless we live together. This is why a lot of these movie stars you guys look at, they date for years. But then when they get married, they end up in divorce a month or two later because they didn't know the person. Okay? So don't fall for that. I want you sisters, you young women and old women, to understand you will never get to know a person until you live together with them anyway. So there's no courtship. There's no prolonging this. If the brother is not going to marry you, let it go, even if it hurts. Let it go. Okay, because all it's going to do is lead to somebody getting hurt in a bad way with their deen or your heart or both. Y'all understand that? Okay, and that's what we're going to be speaking about today. We're continuing with the lawful and the unlawful in regards to marriage and family. And today we're going to look at what Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about celibacy first. I was going to talk about it yesterday, but I held it off for today. We're going to talk about what celibacy is. Just like a lot of Muslims don't understand what free mixing means. Going to the grocery store is not free mixing because I'm in a public with a bunch of other people. Okay? Just like people didn't understand that, they don't understand what celibacy means. Just because a person is single does not mean that they have chosen a life of celibacy. And we're going to also talk about what is it that a woman can reveal of herself to a man if they are engaged. So let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen, inshallah. Oh, man. And by the way, guys, the fun part of Islam, the fun part of marriage is the getting to know each other. because you're never going to know a person until you live with them. And that's what makes marriage fun, because we found out before the marriage that we have a lot in common. You can tell if you have a lot in common with a person just by asking them certain questions, asking them what their likes are, asking that person what their dislikes are. That's how you determine if y'all share a lot in common. And then you look at that person's lifestyle. Does that person pray? Are they wearing hijab? Do they go to the mosque? Are they practicing the deen? That's all you need to know. All you need to focus on before marriage is the religiousness of that person. Does that person pray? Does that person fast? Does that person live his or her life obeying Allah's commands? That's all you need to determine. As far as getting to know them on a better level than that, I can lie and tell you that I can fly. And how you know if it's true or not? I can lie and tell you that I'm clean. And then you marry me and found that I'm trifling, so that other stuff, you're never going to know. You're never going to know until you marry him. And that's the fun part, is finding out that intimacy stuff. People talk about chemistry. You will never be able to determine a person's chemistry until you taste their sweetness. And we don't have sex before marriage. Chemistry comes after the sex, guys. And there is no sex before marriage in Islam. So if somebody tells you that I want to see if we got chemistry, this is a person you need to drop. Drop that person like a hot potato, because what that person is saying to you, I want to have sex with you before marriage to see if we really fit. That's what they're saying to you, because you will never know if me and you have the same chemistry until we taste each other. And we don't do that before Islam. Is that clear to all the people here listening to me? So chemistry, you're never going to learn that until you are married. That's the intimacy. That comes later, and that's the fun part. Okay? But before the marriage, it's about religiousness. It's about, where's this person's head with Allah? Is this person someone that can help me in my plight towards paradise? Is this person someone that I could have children with? And I know that should our marriage not even work out, this woman or this man will raise my children to be God-fearing and righteous. That's the stuff you're looking at before marriage. That chemistry, that stuff is afterwards. All right? So, here's the PowerPoint for today. Let me put it up here. So, okay. Yeah, everybody can see, inshallah. So today we're going to be discussing celibacy and also in what can be seen of a woman before the marriage. Okay. And let's take a look at it. And I use this picture, and you will see why I use this picture. First of all, in Islam, there is no celibacy. Let's talk about what celibacy means. I got children here. Celibacy. A lot of people think that a person, celibacy means to refrain from having sexual relations. That's the Webster Dictionary definition. A person that is celibate, this is a person that is not engaging in any sexual or intimate relationships. That means that person is not having physical sex. It also means that person doesn't have a boyfriend. That person doesn't date. That person just isolates him or herself to their self. That's it. That's celibacy. Okay? In Islam, what does celibacy mean? Just like free mixing means something different. Let me tell you the Islamic meaning of celibacy. In Islam, celibacy is to swear off ever getting married. That's celibacy. Write it down. This is when a person swears by Allah that that person will never get married. That is celibacy. I repeat, in Islam, celibacy is to swear off ever getting married. It does not mean that just because I'm a person that's single, yes, I am practicing celibacy, but I didn't swear off marriage. I'm just waiting for the right brother to come along. You know, and this is a big mistake that we find today. A lot of Muslims who are uneducated of their religion, and that's most of us, that's 90% of us. You come upon a woman like myself, for example, and say, oh my God, Sister Layla has been single for over 20 years. Don't you know it's haram, celibacy? Yeah, I know celibacy is haram. I teach it. Then why are you single? Aren't you committing a sin? No, I'm not committing a sin. It's just that the right brother ain't came knocking on my door. I'll marry in a heartbeat. If the right man came along, I'd marry him today, right now. I would quit my class and get on that phone. I'd call up one of my guardians and say, marry me right now. That's not a person that's practicing celibacy. Celibacy is to swear off marriage. I swear, like the Christians do. The Christians make vows to who they worship, claiming that they'll never get married in their life. No, that's not, that's haram in Islam. So I want y'all to understand what celibacy is. Don't just go up to some person that's been single and say, oh, astaghfirullah, you going to hell because you ain't married. How can you tell somebody that? Maybe they ain't married because they're sick of people like you. They're sick of people like you that don't understand the deen. And they're not going to sell themselves short for somebody like you. Okay? Allah is in control of everything. Nothing's going to happen unless Allah has decreed it to happen. Okay, so let's put that PowerPoint up. That's the meaning of celibacy in Islam. And again, we cannot swear off Allah. And that's why I use this picture. Because you got monks, the Buddhists, they swear off marriage. Okay? Because Islam encourages us to get married. Okay, Islam encourages us to marry and procreate. In fact, Allah says, go out and procreate. We have this hadith from Abu Kulayba. He said that some of the companions of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, decided to swear off. Y'all see it? This is to swear off. To swear off the world. To swear to never take a wife. And to be like a monk. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, the people before you were destroyed because of this. They made excessive demands on themselves until Allah brought hardships upon them. And you can still see a few of them living in monasteries and temples. Worship Allah. And do not associate partners with him. Perform the Hajj and the Umrah and be righteous, and all affairs in the world will be set right for you. So this is the dalil. We don't swear off marriage. We cannot live a life as a celibate. The true meaning of it in Islam being that I've taken a vow. I've taken a vow of abstinence. That's what it's called. I've taken a vow of abstinence that I will never, ever, ever get married. We can't do that because this goes against the human body. Okay? This is not what you were created to do, to swear off a life of anything except praying. Okay? This is haram. And there's the dalil for that. Also, Abu Kulayba gives us the history. He says, when Allah sent down the verse of the Quran saying, "O you who believe, do not make unlawful the good things that Allah made lawful for you, and do not transgress Allah's limits, because Allah does not like transgressors." He said, that's why Allah sent that verse down. Because some of the companions were swearing off marriage. swearing off eating food, swearing off doing things to be like the Christians and the Buddhists and just spend their lives in the temple worshiping Allah. No, no, no. This is haram for us. And checked out this hadith, Mujahid, he tells us that some people, including Uthman ibn Mazun and Ibn Umar, even our Ibn Umar, they intended to renounce their wives and to castrate themselves and wear rough clothing because they didn't want to do nothing but worship Allah. And Allah sent that verse of the Quran down. You know, so we can't do that. And we have a lot of Muslims today that belong to Sufi sects, some of them. There's different sets of Sufis, like there's different sets of Salafis and different sets of Shiites and everything else. You know, we're just a setful nation, like the Prophet said we would be. Okay? You got some of these sects that swear off worldly things. They wear rough clothing. They don't have furniture in their house. They do nothing but pray all day and fast a lot. You know, no, we can't do that. Allah is telling us, you know, that the life of this world, we're of balance. Remember, I tell you guys, as Muslims, we are people of dignity. We are people of humility and balance. We're not too far to the right, nor are we too far to the left. We're a people of balance. Okay? We also have hadiths in Sahih Bukhari that 3 men came to the Prophet's wives and asked, how did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conduct his worship? When she told them how they did it, they considered it to be a little. They said, what a difference there is between us and the Prophet, whose past and future sins were forgiven. One of them said, for me, I will do nothing but pray all night long. The other said, I will swear off women and never get married. And when they left, Aisha, radiallahu anha, told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about it. And when he heard this, he went to them and explained to them. He said, I am the one who fears Allah the most amongst you. But I fast and I break my fast. I pray and I also sleep. And I marry women. He said, whoever turns away from my example has nothing to do with me. So this is more of the dalil. We cannot swear off marriage, guys. That's what celibacy is. It doesn't mean to never get married. There may be conditions that things that happen in your life that prevent you from marrying. Subhanallah. But to swear that you will never do it and instead replace it with worship, this is what's haram in Islam. Does everybody understand this meaning now? We have another hadith, again, where Saud ibn Abu Waqas, he said that the Prophet objected when Uthman ibn Mazun was living a life of celibacy. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam objected to it. Okay? And when they threatened to castrate themselves, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam objected to that. We don't castrate ourselves. This is another haramity. It's haram in Islam to castrate yourself. What does castrate means? To cut off your private parts. Because that's what these companions wanted to do. They wanted to remove their private parts so they would never have desires and just spend their time worshiping Allah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we can't do this. In fact, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, oh, young men, for those of you who can afford a wife, then you should get married because it'll keep you from looking at women and preserve your chastity. So these men wanted to castrate themselves, to cut off their private parts so they wouldn't have desires to look at a woman. The Prophet said, no, 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 no. That's not how it works. Allah wants us to go out and procreate. Subhanallah. So from these hadiths, You got some scholars out there who will tell you that marriage is obligatory for the Muslim who is able to support a family, and that to avoid getting married is not permissible. And then you have other scholars who add to this and say that that if you are able to marry and you don't, you're going to fall into sin. It is not befitting for a Muslim to refrain from marriage because you fear poverty or because you fear that you won't be able to handle it. In fact, Islam teaches us to make every possible attempt to find a job and to seek help from Allah so that you can get married. That's for you brothers. So there's no celibacy. And for the women, the same thing. You cannot swear off marriage as a woman. There are no nuns in Islam. And we don't look like them. We don't dress like them. I take offense, and I'm sure every Muslim woman on planet Earth takes offense when these brothers try to equate us to a nun. A nun wish she looked like lailanasheeba. A nun wish she could dress like me. They don't look nothing like me. Put me next to any nun, and you will be able to say that these two things are not the same. We don't look alike. We don't think alike. We don't live alike. We don't behave alike. Okay? So, but I tell my young students here, I don't care, you cannot swear off marriage. Can't nobody force you to get married. If you're not ready to get married, okay. I want you guys to understand the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said marriage becomes an obligation if it's eating at your private parts. If you have your private parts under control, you're not lusting after men, then it's okay. But when you start having those desires, those sexual, physical desires, that's when marriage becomes an obligation on you. That's when, to save your soul, that's when you sisters go to your guardian and you tell your father, I'm ready to get married, Abu. And then let your father look for you a husband. You don't go look on your own. You do not look on your own. You let your father, your brothers, your uncles, and the men in your family look for you a mate that they think you might be compatible with. Okay? But if you're not having sexual desires, you don't have a problem lowering your gaze, then you're okay. Does everybody understand that? The religion is easy. We have to stop making it hard. And listen to what Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning. He says, marry those amongst you who are single, and the virtuous, righteous ones amongst your slaves, male or female. And if you fear poverty, Allah will bless you out of his bounty. So again, for those brothers out there who want to get married, but you don't have the money, just make dua. Make dua, do some fasting, because fasting is one of the highest acts of worship for Allah, to Allah. Fast and make dua, asking Allah to give you the means, and he will. He's telling you right there in that verse, if you ask for his help, he will give you the means. So make dua, asking Allah to give you the means, brothers. Listen to what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. He said there are three who have a right to the help of Allah. The one who marries out of the desire to have a chaste life, and the slave whose master has agreed to buy his freedom when he wishes to pay the sum, and the one who fights in the way of Allah. What does that hadith mean? It means exactly what it says, and y'all can see it's authentic. If you, Allah will give you the help. You are entitled to the help of Allah. If you are trying to get married because you want to keep yourself from falling into sin. And I tell you sisters that too. For you sisters, like the sister that asked the question about controlling her desires. The sister that says she fell in love at first sight with some man that she don't even know. You know, go home and pray. Don't go around that man no more. Stay away from the grocery store. And in the meantime, make dua, asking Allah to give you the means to get married. Ask Allah to send someone who is willing to marry you your way. And because you're trying to protect your virtue, you're trying to protect your chastity. And I'm telling you, it'll work. Allah will send proposals to your guardian. Because that's a person that's entitled. Allah doesn't want it. Long as you're making your salats and you're living your life obeying Allah, not committing sins intentionally, Allah will help you. It's if you're committing sins intentionally that Allah is not going to help you. Does everybody understand that's hadith? Okay. So now that brings us to the next question. What about this? Seeing the woman to whom you have proposed marriage to. Seeing the woman that you have proposed marriage to. It is permissible for a man to see the woman whom he intends to marry. But when we talk about seeing her, it means her face and her hands. That's it. He has a right to look at you. If you're one of those women that wear niqab or you wear a burqa or whatever, you have to remove that niqab. You have to remove that burqa. That's more proof that it's not obligatory to cover your face. Because if it was an obligation for a woman to cover her face, Allah wouldn't have you remove it under any circumstances. Okay? But if a man wants to marry you, you have to take that burqa off so he can see your face and also your hands. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in an authentic hadith that the eye is the messenger of the heart. And when the eyes meet, the heart and souls of man and woman may meet as well. Okay? So you look at the person. You look to see how he looks. He looks to see how you look. And hey, there can be some connection. I like the way you look. You're tall enough. You like the way I look, brother? Yeah, you're tall enough. And that's it. That's it. That's it. Okay? If he wants to see more of you, he can't. But he can send his daughter or his sister or his mother or his niece to take a look at you. Y'all understand? For example, when one of my brothers wanted to get married, he announced to me and the women in the family that he wanted to find a wife. So we started looking. I was the one that found him a wife. Okay, the one that I know what he wanted. And before when I found her and she agreed, I said, let me see your hair. Because I know what my brother likes. He likes long hair. I know he don't want no man looking woman with no dreadlocks, twists, and none of that other ugly stuff. She removed her hijab and I saw that her hair was exactly what he wanted. And I said, that's it. You're good to go. And I told my brother, she's to your liking. And I already saw her. I knew how her shape was. I told him her body and her hair is to your liking. That's all I had to tell him. And he took that. So if the brother wants to know how long your hair is or what type of legs you got, do fries go with that shape? If you got a big butt, he can send his sister or his mother or his niece or even his cousin who's a female to look at you. Do you sisters understand that? Okay, some men like a woman that's got a big butt. Send your sister. Let me see your butt. Girl, yeah, okay. And you go back and tell your brother she's to your liking. You don't describe the woman to him. Because in case the marriage doesn't work out, you don't give him do like I did my brother. You just simply say she's to your liking. That's all. She's to your liking. You sisters got it? That's how that goes. But you don't get naked. You don't strip off your clothes. You don't show your legs. You don't show your breasts, your arms, your hair, or any of that to the man. If he asks you to do that, you tell him no. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to disobey Allah. We have the hadith from Abu Huraira that says a man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and told him that he had entered into a contract for marriage to one of the Ansar women. The Prophet asked him, did you look at her? The man said no. The Prophet said, go back and take a look at her because there's a defect in the eyes of the Ansar. Then we have another hadith where al-Mughira, he said, I asked for a woman in marriage. The Prophet asked me if I looked at her. I said, no. He said, go look at her because perhaps by looking at her, you'll like what you see and it could help produce love between you. So I went to her parents and told them what the Prophet said. They disapproved of me looking at their daughter, but their daughter heard the conversation from her room and said, if the Prophet told you to look at me, then look. And I looked at her face and I subsequently married her. So those are two hadiths, the face and the hands. That's what the man can see, the face and hands. Anything else, he can send his sister, his mother, his cousin, any female that he trusts to take a look at you. And she goes back and tell him she's to your liking or she's not to your liking. That's all they have to say. Okay. Now, older women. Let's talk about it. What about women over the age of 50? Because there's a misconception out there. There's a lot of Muslim men that think that if a woman is over the age of 50 or 40, she's old and elderly. We talked about that in a previous class. That is not how we define an elderly person. An elderly woman in Islam and an elderly man in Islam is not determined by their age. An elderly man in Islam or an elderly woman in Islam is a person that has reached past the throes of life and they're walking a thin line to death. They're so shriveled up, so broke down physically. They're closer to death than they are to life. The person is broke down physically, meaning that their body is broke down. Their face is broke down. They look haggard. They have difficulty walking, difficulty standing. If you saw that person naked on the street, you wouldn't desire them sexually. You'd say, help that poor woman, help that poor man. That's elderly in Islam. Elderly, just like a menses, is not based on numbers. I am 62 years old. Would y'all call me broke down? A lot of you brothers can't handle me with my hijab and jilbab on. What if I took this stuff off and y'all saw my hair and how I look without this on? Am I broke down? No. Elderly is not determined by age, but unfortunately, guys, there's a lot of Muslims that don't understand that. So if a woman is 60, 70, 50, 40 years old trying to get married, some men will say, oh, she's elderly and old and broke down. Prove it. That's why it's important for you sisters. They got a right to see you. If the man wants you to stand up and walk, he may ask you to stand up and walk. Stand up and walk. Because in their mind, they think that you're hobbling. You're just broke down because you're 60. Stand up and walk. Show them. I walk better than you. I stand taller than you. I'm more fit than you are, Aki. So with the older women, not just showing your face and hands, but you might have to stand up and walk. Make sure you got a jilbab on or an abaya, but you got to walk and let them see I ain't broke down. I can move, Aki. I still got it going on. So you sisters as older may have to do that. And the same with the men, because I'm Layla. If I hear that your behind is over 50, you got to show me Show me that you ain't got the diabetes problems and high blood and what's that prostrate crap. Show me that you can walk. Show me that you ain't lost it. Move. So the elderly Muslims might take that, look at the person a little bit further, not just the face and hands, but the body movement. Can he walk? Is he on a cane? Do a medical background. He got prostrate problems, sugar diabetes, high blood pressure, because that medication can cause problems. Y'all know that, keeping it real. So it's a little different with the elderly people. Okay. Now we can see from these hadiths, this is where the problem comes. In these hadiths, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not specify to Mughira or the other man how much of the woman they can see. That's why you got some scholars who are of the opinion that it's limited to just looking at the face and hands, but you got other scholars who will go so far as to say that a man can see your hair, your leg, or whatever he wants, because the face and hands can be seen anyway, whether you're getting married or not. And they base that on the fact that the hadith where the Prophet said, when one of you asks for women in marriage, if he can look at what will induce him to marry her, do so. So you got some scholars that play on that, what will induce him to marry her. And they'll say a woman can take off her hijab. A woman can show her leg. A woman can show her arm. But this is incorrect, guys. That is not correct. Don't let nobody play with you with that hadith like that. No, because if I had 10 men wanting to marry me and I showed all of them how I look without a hijab on and a abaya, then I ain't nothing but a strumpet. Who's going to want me? They all done seen me. Okay? So that's not true, but there are scholars out there that play with that hadith there. But and instead, that hadith does not mean that a woman can show whatever the man wants to see. The other scholars say that what this hadith means is this, that the man can accompany her with her father or a mahram as a chaperone and visit her or go to public places while she's dressed in hijab. That's the most correct meaning of that hadith. Okay? And I put this opinion, here's the scholars that are of that. So this way he'll get the opportunity to have an insight to her reasoning, her behavior, her personality. So they say that when the Prophet says, if you can look at what will induce you to marry her, do so. They say that this means her behavior, her reasoning, her personality. A man can be in the presence of the woman if there's a third party available. So if my father invites him over, he can come and he can, see how I walk too. That's where the older women thing come in. I'm an older woman. He's an older man. He can see how I walk, how I move, that I'm not dehibited, whatever that word is, messed up, broke down. I can still roundhouse kick. I can do whatever I can do. And I want him to show me impotency problems. What's going on here? That's a medical thing. That's something we're going to talk about. You have a right to that. You have a right to ask those type of questions about impotency. That's a big problem. Okay, a lot of women have called me about that. They marry these men and these men are impotent because of the medications they take. We'll talk about that in another class. Okay, but you have the right to all that. But when you come upon these brothers that use this hadith, saying that they can see your hair and legs, you tell them, no, that ain't what it means. It means that you can be with me. You can accompany me with a mahram. So you can get the opportunity to have insight to my behavior, my thinking. Again, you can see my religiousness determine how religious I am, and if we share things in common. So that brings us to the last point I want to make for today. What type of proposals are forbidden in Islam? Well, it is forbidden for a Muslim man to propose to a woman who is divorced or widowed and going through her waiting period. In other words, you have to wait until her divorce is complete. You have to wait until her waiting period as a widow is complete before you can propose to her. You can let it be known that you want to marry her, but you cannot approach her or her guardian until after it's over. Does everybody understand that? Likewise, it is forbidden to the Muslim to propose to a woman who is already engaged to another Muslim man. Okay, unless he drops it, unless he tells him, I don't want her anymore, so now you can go. We have the hadith, whereas the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a believer is a brother to another believer. It is therefore not lawful for him to outbid his brother when he buys something, or when it comes to proposing to a woman when his brother has already proposed to her. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a man must not propose to another man's a woman until he withdraws it or gives him the permission. So these are the things I wanted to go over today. Is all of this stuff clear? I want every Muslim listening to me to understand that just because a Muslim is single does not mean that person's going to hell. That is not celibacy. In Islam, celibacy is to swear off marriage, to swear by Allah that you are never going to get married. Nowadays, it's hard to find righteous men, and it's hard to find righteous women. So a lot of us have no choice but to be single because we love Allah. We love the Prophet and we love ourselves, and we're not going to settle for just anyone. So don't be quick to call somebody a person of the hellfire. You're one of the reasons why we're single, because we're sick of people like you. Go learn the deen. We can be patient. We're patient. And if Allah don't give it to us in this world, we know we got somebody better, a prophet or a companion waiting for us upstairs. Okay? And also free mixing. Free mixing is to be alone with a woman or a man that's not a mahram to you. Going to the grocery store, going to any public place is not a free mixing. Long as you're in the public, people can see, they're witnesses. So stop telling women that it's haram to go to the grocery store. It's haram to go to the mosque. It's haram. Everything is haram, haram, haram. Oh my God, people. And with the engagements, the only thing that the man is supposed to see is your face and your hands and what naturally appears thereof, the way you walk. If he wants to know what type of hair you got, what type of behind you got, whether you fat, whether you're skinny, he can send a sister on his behalf to check you out. And if she finds that you are to his liking, she goes back to him and says, she is what you want. She shouldn't describe you, just say she is what you're looking for. If she comes back to him and says she's not what you're looking for, then that's it. And the same with you sisters for the man. You want to make sure that the man ain't got no disabilities. So you can have a brother go check him out on your behalf to make sure he doesn't have broke down feet, broke down hands, and, you know, all that stuff. Islam is easy. It's simple. And there's no questions or circumstances that you people can come up with today that those companions have not already experienced. The answers are right there in these hadiths, as I'm proving it to you. All right, I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.